Hey beauties, welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I am your host, Sherry Ricard. I'm a medical professional, business leader, author, speaker, and adversity recovery expert, bringing you fascinating guests, business, beauty, and lifestyle tips to help you create a beautiful life, and always committed to keeping it real. Now let's dive in.
The loss of a loved one is a nearly universal emotional crisis. Unprocessed grief and painful feelings can be buried, leaving you to feel numb. But there is hope. Certified grief counselor, RN, and author Sherry Ricard shares her story of how to cope in her first book, Wake Up Call, A Mother's Grief Journey, after the loss of her 17-year-old son. This book, along with Sherry's other books, are available on Amazon as well as on sherryricard.com.
Today's episode is sponsored by BRA, Business Relationship Alliance, a network of powerful women devoted to advancing female-owned businesses by providing the community, collaboration, mentorship, empowerment, and support needed to flourish as an entrepreneur. Jump over to bra-network.com, become a member today for 20% off by using discount code GIRLTALK. That's bra-network.com. Hello, my beauties. It's me, Sherry, back for another episode of Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. So great to be with you. And thank you for all you loyal listeners that join me every single week. Today is a special day because I am always excited to share amazing female leaders in the military. And my guest today is spectacular. And I will tell you, and I told her that I wasn't sure I was going to do this interview. And I'll tell you why. Because, I'm not easily intimidated, but when I read her bio, I was easily intimidated. So I want to introduce Becky Halstead. She is the first woman to graduate the United States Military Academy to achieve the rank of general officer. She is also the first woman in U.S. history to lead in combat at the strategic level as commanding general in Iraq. Today, she runs her own leader consulting company, STEADFAST Leadership. Becky has a proven record of leading change, building successful teams in demanding environments. Afghanistan and Iraq, for instance. Becky also provides hundreds of keynote speeches, and leads training in corporate and academic sectors at both national and international engagements. Welcome to the show, Becky.
Thank you for having me. I know now, please, I know you're not intimidated anymore because we met before we went live. So
that's right. Okay, so I'm good because, guys, I'm just going to tell you, she's the coolest ever and she's laid back. But I'm going to tell you, when I saw a rank of a general officer, and she was the first woman in U.S. history to lead in combat, I was like, oh my gosh, she is going to make me so nervous, but she's not. She is super cool. I am so excited to have you. And Becky and I were just going to bring you in on the conversation that we were just having. And we were just talking about a lot of things. And we're talking about women, and we're talking about women and leadership and her book. And I guess we'll just kind of start off right there. Tell everybody a little bit about your book and what you were just telling me, what led you to write that and some of what it's about.
Okay, sure. So when I got out of the military, when I was in the military for 27 years, and I moved 18 times. And like you said earlier, I had the honor and privilege of leading America's men and women in combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so when I retired in 2008, what I knew was that I loved my soldiers. Like I loved the aspect of leading in the military more than anything else. I mean, I did logistics, like you're the medical field. So I did logistics, medical logistics, all kinds of supply, ammunition, all that. But what I loved most was the leadership part of it, the human dimension. So when I retired, I thought, well, maybe there'd be something that relevant from my journey in the military that I could share with students, with the corporate sector, whatever, about what I learned, through failure and through success. And if I could kind of package that and share it, then maybe that'd be a good idea. So I started speaking on leadership and came up with STEADFAST Leadership. STEADFAST Leadership started in the Army for me, but as far as my acronym, so I started a company called STEADFAST Leadership. Well, as we were discussing, when you get out there and you start speaking, people come up to you afterwards and they go, please tell me you've written a book. Like, I want to hear more stories. And I'd be, oh, I'm working on it. But I wasn't working very fast. But so I finally buckled down and said, I need to write a book so that, I think people deserve more of you. I mean, people invest in you to come speak and they want more. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to hand them a book and say, here's more stories, here's more principles. So I wrote the book and thought about my 27 years. What were those leadership principles that I felt were most important to leading myself and leading others? And how can I share those with people? Mm-hmm. And so there's 30 chapters. You and I were talking earlier about devotionals. I'm a big devotional person. I'm on a book that has day 1 to day 30. So I started out writing it that way until one of my friends said, do I have to wait each day to read like the next? I go, no. It's just, so I changed it to Leadership Principle 1 through 30. But so 30 principles with lots of stories where I got it right, where I got it wrong. And the whole goal for me was, if you're reading the story and then you start to remember a story in your own life, like your own situation, then wouldn't that be really powerful, right? Because it will ignite in you to either keep doing something or to change something in your life. And so it was a great time of reflection, and I wrote it, and it's been a nice compliment to the speaking. And I've just turned into a few other things like online courses and things like that.
Right.
Groups that I work with. But yeah, it was a material, and you go like, oh, but I got 60 principles, but I think I only put 30 in. So that's kind of a hard task, but we got it done. And so that's why I wrote it. And it's been a lot of fun sharing it with other people.
Well, tell me a little bit about, because when you were just saying that you share from the stage some of your experiences and stories, share with us some of the things that you share from the stage when you're doing your keynotes, because I am just mesmerized by the women that are in the military, and for you to be at the rank that you were and you're leading combat. I mean, my head cannot wrap around it, because I would be so afraid that I think I would probably just pass out. I would literally pass out from anxiety. So tell us a little bit about what you share from the stage.
Sure, be happy to. So the title of the book, and I never talk about the book on the stage, but this will set kind of a setting for it. The title of the book is The First Person You Must Lead Is You. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because I do believe I had to start with myself to be the standard if I want to expect somebody else to follow suit.
Right.
So my main themes on stage is that leadership is a choice. So you're either choosing to lead or choosing not to lead. That the first person you must lead is yourself.
Right.
That everyone is a leader. And I tell everybody is a leader, because you have at least one person to lead, and that is yourself. Right. Mm-hmm. And then there's great joy in leading. I mean, so many people that are in the audience, they have children. And I'll say to them, how many of you have children? Okay, don't you get really excited when your child achieves something that you participated with, that you maybe coached them on or you taught them? If you could put into words how wonderful that makes you feel, wouldn't it be great if every leader in the workplace looked at the people on their team the same way and went, man, I'm so excited we learned that today, or that we just raised our standard a little bit higher, or we're serving our customer a little bit better, or we're taking care of our patient in a more effective way, and the family that supports the patient. So I talk about the joy of leading, and the greatest joy of leading is leaving a legacy, right? Is that, like, I retired from the military, but I have a host of men and women that stay in touch with me and say, hey, ma'am, I got promoted, I got married, we had a child.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? To create that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are your tips then? If you have to lead yourself, which a lot of us spend most of our time helping others, right? So especially us as women, we're born nurturers.
Yes.
And we spend a lot of our time caring for others and helping others succeed, as far as our children or our spouses. how do we begin to take control without having that feeling of, oh gosh, I'm being selfish and feeling guilty
Right.
about trying to succeed and lead our own lives because we're so used to taking care of everybody else? How do we lose that guilt?
Well, I don't know that you ever lose the guilt, but I say then use the guilt to motivate you to do something, right? So, I mean, I do think that we are nurturers and that we wanted to fix and take care of everybody else before we take care of ourselves. But the best way that I can say this is that the only way I can keep taking care of others, leading others, helping others, is to make sure that I'm in a physical, mental, spiritual state that's strong. And the
Right.
only way to be in that strong state is to make sure that I'm taking care of those parts of my life too. And so in the military, I mean, when I retired in 2008, I retired because I had chronic fibromyalgia. And
Wow.
there's no doubt in my mind when the neurologist and the rheumatologist, the two doctors that I had at Walter Reed, the rheumatologist looked at me and she said, "Ma'am, what got you here today," i.e. being a general, right? And through
Yeah.
Iraq and everything else, what got you here today is what got you here today in this hospital. Is that you're very driven, you're very determined, but you have not taken time to take care of you. And so it was very sad in many ways because I love the military and I had a wonderful career. And there are a lot of people that felt like, 2 stars were in reach and everything else. But I knew that I needed to retire to regroup and make sure that I became healthier again if I want to keep helping people. And so that's why I retired. So I think we have to let go of that guilt, and maybe the best way to do it is say, well, if this is so important to me to take care of my family, take care of my team, take care of my community, then just every day make sure I'm carving out time for me so I stay strong and I can do it.
Well, I told you before we started chatting and having a conversation live that I fly every week. And one thing that I noticed is, what does the flight attendant always say? Before you put your mask on the person sitting next to you or your child, put it on yourself before you assist someone else. And I thought about that analogy in life. And then that's what you have to do. Before you can actually help someone else, you have to help yourself. You have to put the oxygen mask on yourself, or you'll pass out and not be able to help the person next to you. Right. And that's what we do in everyday life. But I think that we do go astray sometimes as women, and we put so much into the people around us that we forget to care for ourselves. And then before you know it, we start growing resentful. I think women get resentful of having to take care of everybody else.
Yeah. And it's also about leading by example. So if I bring, I think of times when I would bring some of the people that work for me into my office and say, okay, great. So here's what you're doing well. Here's what you need to work on. Now tell me, when's your next vacation plan? And if they couldn't tell me, I'd kind of get on them. I go like, wait a second. Now you have a family. You need to take care of your family. You need to be planning also your off time, right? So where are you going to go? Right. When is your vacation? Where are you going to go? But then one day, this one young officer said to me, he said, well, ma'am, what are you doing on your next vacation? And I was a little bit taken back by the fact that they had the audacity to ask me. But it was perfect because I didn't, right? I did not have that planned. And so I think if we can always reframe these things to going, am I leading by example? Like, am I living by example to what I'm trying to help you do? Because if I'm not, then it's a double standard. Now, who wants double standards? Double standards is mediocrity. You and I didn't wake up this morning and say, let's go out and see how mediocre we can be, right? So,
well, I know you're doing something right, because you were the first female to graduate West Point and be promoted to a general officer in 2004. What does it take to be promoted to a general?
Well, it takes a lot of years, right? So first of all, it doesn't happen overnight. You have to have, usually 25 to 30 years of experience and growth, and, hills and valleys and ups and downs, failures and successes. So I would say it takes a lot of grit, takes a lot of tenacity, takes a lot of commitment. And I think it goes back to why I say, you always have to lead yourself first, because I was in the second class of women to go to West Point. So the women in the class of 80 were the first women. but there were still 2 full classes of all men, and it was still the majority of the people didn't want you there. And so you have to learn very quickly that I always say there's 2 rules to life. Rule number 1, don't quit. Rule number 2, refer back to rule number 1. Okay. So I had to keep telling myself that, because if you look at my journals from when I was a cadet, I bet every single day that I wrote in there, it's I hate it here, I want to quit. Right. But I tell people, because people, the upperclassmen and a few upperclass women, but there weren't that many, they're breathing down your neck. They're telling you on a daily basis, hour by hour, that they're going to run you out of this man's army. Like they're not there to make you successful. They're there to make you miserable. Like they want to run you out. I mean, that's the first year. That's the way it is. And that's the way it is for men and women. It's not just women, right? So then one day, an upperclassman, I can feel his breath on my cheek. I'm hearing his words, but I'm not scared. I'm not intimidated. I'm just kind of like tuning him out a little bit. Like I'm thinking of my prom, and I'm thinking about my girlfriends that are back in a regular college, and I'm doing whatever. But then on other days, I would get angry, and I get lonely, and I get sad, and I go, I hate it here, I'm going to quit. And one day I came to the realization that if I quit, who wins? The person breathing down my neck.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, I probably wasn't quite that obvious then, but so many different times I've wanted to quit along the way. And I realized that faith has been my foundation. And I think God really pushed me to realize that stop praying for the storm to go away, just pray to get through the storm, and I wouldn't put it in front of you if I wasn't going to go through it with you, and all these things. And so I thought, no, there's a reason for this. And there's a season for everything. And iron sharpens iron. And so I can do this. And with God's help, I'll get through it. And now I look back and go, I'm so glad I didn't quit, because if I had quit, I wouldn't have had these extraordinary opportunities.
Right. You know what? You're filling me up, because it's this week. I told you about my son, and
yes,
this week I actually went back to Memphis, which is where he's buried. And I normally would go every year, and it's been over a year. And I went to his gravesite just 2 days ago, and his birthday is next Friday. He would be 30. And when you made that point of, quit wishing the storm away, and then just how to get through the storm, it was so many years of a storm that I just wanted it to all go away.
right.
And, there was a point in my life that I've shared this before, for several months after my son died, I just didn't want to be here. I mean, I literally did not want to be here. And, you have people say, well, you have other children to care for. Listen, any mother that has lost a child, she'll claw your eyeballs out if you tell her that she has other kids, because one child doesn't replace the other. That is not,
right.
I wrote a blog years ago, and it's like the 7 things never to say to a grieving mom. And that was on the list,
Right.
It's interesting that you say that, because there was so many times that I just wanted those feelings to go away. And instead what God did was he guided me and gave me strength and made me stronger to see the purpose, the big purpose and the big picture that he had. And I think a lot of people too, they're going through some type of adversity, especially right now with, COVID and everything that's going on, and people losing their jobs, and, are having to get used to be at home with all the screaming kids and all of these things. We can't focus on the adversity and the tragedies that we're in at the time. We have to focus on getting strength and gaining strength through our faith, because God gives you the strength to get through. And, the saying, this too shall pass, that's not just something to say. It's true. This too shall pass.
Right.
And you will get through it, and you will get past it. But you have to pray for that. You have to pray for your strength to get through whatever that you're going through, and know that you're going to come out on the other end stronger. You're going to come out stronger.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Iraq, Becky, because
sure.
I'm trying to picture being in combat, and I can't, because my brain just cannot go there. Like I said, I would pass out being scared to death. So you're in that, and not only are you in it, but you're leading you're leading people into combat. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, combat, isn't like what you see in the movies, and I think sometimes if we, when we've not been exposed to the military and we don't really understand what's a day in the life of a soldier, or an airman, right, a Marine,
Right.
and so combat is different to lots of people, right? So for instance, so I was in Iraq. I had 20,000 military men and women and 5,000 civilians in the command that I was in charge of.
Mm.
We did all the logistics by ground and by air, and we operated at 55 bases in the country of Iraq. So we were very busy. We did 70% of our operations at night. So, we put convoys out on the road. They were interdicted and attacked by enemy quite often. But my command was about delivering logistics to all the other units. So we were in support of 250,000 people. But there are all kinds of units in combat. There are other units that are doing foot patrols through Baghdad. They're going in and doing searches in homes. And my soldiers didn't do that, but my soldiers ran convoys, and they got attacked a lot with, IEDs and mortars and rockets and things like that. And then we had base defense. I was in charge of 5 bases. I had 30,000 people at the base that my headquarters was at.
Yeah.
And so, on any given day, it's just almost, I won't say overwhelming, but that in a split second, you could be attacked on that base. We were attacked every day, but so I had personal and professional goals going into Iraq. One of my personal goals, which is probably professional also, but I wanted not one soldier to die on any of the bases that I was responsible for because of our defense or offense not being what it needed to be.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of energy with my teams into making sure we're very well protected. But so combat is, I guess the best way I can explain it to you is that I never felt fearful. So on my dog tags, I wore a shield of faith, Joshua 1:9, be strong, be courageous, do not be terrified, do not be discouraged, because God's with you wherever you go. So in our military, I would just tell you that be encouraged, because we're not out there scared. We're not out there fearful. We're very well trained. We're certified in our jobs. We're subject matter experts. We know how to do our mission with minimal loss of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also tell people that, and it goes to your story, when I was interviewed by the Pentagon, while I'm over there, you get these news conferences, and people ask you the darndest questions. And someone said, well, how many people have died in your command? And I said, well, I'm not going to answer that question. And the woman that was interviewing, one of the journalists, she said, well, why not? Then I said, because I have 20,000 soldiers in my command. And if I give you a number and you do the math and you say, wow, well, that's really good because 99% or 96% of your folks survived or lived or haven't been killed, you're going to think that statistic of 90 something is really good. And I'm here to tell you it isn't, because one soldier dies. If it's your soldier, that's 100% to you. So I'm not going to talk to you about numbers ever. So, but we're a family. We're very tight in the military. We take care of each other. We take care of our families. I mean, in Iraq, I would do this, like Zoom, right? A video teleconference with the families, so that they were hearing from the boss, right? Like, hey, right. I want you to know. And most of the time it was husbands, but they're, most of the time I was talking to wives and saying, I just want to let you know how your husbands are doing. But occasionally there was a husband in the group and how your wife is doing.
Yeah.
So, I want you to be proud of your soldier, your officer, and I'm proud of you. My doing that was to connect with the family, right? To say, we could not do what we do over here without them. And I still stay in touch with a lot of family members on Facebook and
that is
everything
so
else.
Awesome.
Yeah. So combat isn't what some people think of, where you're like in a constant state of fear. Well, let me go back to my shield of faith. So, I mean, we would get attacked. We get mortars in the base, and you'd have to go to ground and wait for that attack to be over. And no one ever was killed at the bases that I was responsible for, but we had some that were very badly injured. But in that into combat, I thought that my greatest challenge would be that I would be fearful, that I would be scared.
Right.
Because I'd been to combat, I've been to Afghanistan, but not in the same capacity. I mean, I didn't have 20,000 people. I had this huge responsibility, and I was there a lot shorter period of time than a whole year, right? Anyhow,
Yeah.
so I would look at that shield of faith, and I was thinking that's what's going to bother me. But in reality, the hardest thing for that verse for me to follow was to do not be discouraged.
Yeah.
See, because I would get discouraged when I made a poor decision, other people made poor decisions, if we didn't do what we were supposed to do, if we didn't treat each other the way we should treat each other. And that's what I thought the hardest for me personally was that piece of don't be discouraged. But it is very encouraging to know that God's with you wherever you go. And when I speak, and we talked about how much we travel and speak, I tell everybody, we're combat's everywhere. You don't have to go to Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, look at the combat you went through, right, with the loss of your son.
Yeah.
Some people are combating cancer. Some people are combating loss of finances. So grief and combat, those things come in so many different forms that you don't have to go all the way there to find it. So these things that you and I talk about on stage and in conferences and in workshops, these are tools to help individuals get through their individual combat, right?
Right.
And
well, we all go through some type of adversity. And, I've had people that come to me and say, I feel really silly. As a matter of fact, I had someone the other day that sent me a DM, and she was telling me a little bit about what she was going through. And she said, I feel really silly. And I feel kind of selfish because what I'm going through is nothing like what you had to go through. And I said, that's not true, because you don't have to bury your child and feel that particular pain to say that you aren't going through some type of suffering. I never want people to feel like that unless they have the level of tragedy that I had, that their pain and their suffering is diminished, because it is all in the perspective of what is painful to you in your life, right? There's people that go through bankruptcy. They have to shut down their businesses of 20 and 30 years. I don't know what it's like to have a business and have to shut it down in my livelihood of 30 years. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like to lose your mom, and there's people that have lost their mothers. And I pray to God every day that my mother stays with me forever and ever and ever. I lost my dad a year and a half ago. And up to then, I had no idea what it was like to lose a parent. Although I met so many people that had lost parents, and I could only speak from education at that point and my certification, but now I know what it feels like to lose a father. But it doesn't diminish anything that anyone's gone through. I don't know what it's like to be in the military and have to, duck my head because there's bullets all over the place and people are I have no idea what that's like. But I know that I've met people that have lost loved ones in Iraq. And I've met people that I've met one particular person that lost someone in 9/11, so I personally didn't lose anyone, but I've met someone that has, and it took years for them to actually get to a point to where they could even talk about it. Yes. Right. So,
I mean, that's the reason why, I try to stay in touch with some Gold Star families, right? Gold Star families are those who have lost a son or daughter, a family member, in combat. And because I can't imagine, what they are really feeling. I only know what I know for them having been on my team, right? And how we lost them as part of our team. But when it's your own flesh and blood, it's just totally different. So I stay in touch with them, not because I will ever be able to totally know what they're feeling, but I stay in touch with them because I promise that I will never forget their son or daughter, right? So if that helps them get through their storm, then I'm in, and some of the families, I have to be very candid with them because I don't always know, in my trying to be encouraging, maybe that it's actually bothering them, right? So I've been pretty direct. Like a couple of families I've said, are you okay with me reaching out to you on the anniversary of your of your son's death, or would you prefer I not do that and just reach out to you on things like Memorial Day? Oh no, if you would continue to reach out on the anniversary of their death, I can't even tell you how much that means to us. Oh, okay, I'd
Right.
be happy to do that. And because we all respond differently, one right or wrong. It's just that we all cope differently. Somebody once told me, take the word "just" out of your vocabulary, right? Because people come to me and say, "Well, I just served in the military for 3 years." I'm like, no, 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 you served. Okay, so take that word
Yeah.
"just" out of it. Or I just had cancer, versus something bigger than that, right? Or I just have
Right.
fibromyalgia. And I'm like, no, don't take that word out of it, because if you're struggling with it, you're struggling with it, and it is what it is. And if we can help give people tools to lead themselves through that, and come out better on the other side, how wonderful is that?
Right. And that's funny that you said that, because somebody told me that the other day. I met a woman that has literally been at the bedside in ICU for 30 years. And I said, I can't imagine staying at the bedside for 30 years, because I just did 11. And
Right.
she said, you just did 11? No, you did 11. And she said it
Yeah.
just like you did. And I was thinking, you know what? You're right. Because that was a hard 11 years.
But to me, that means, because every effort counts,
Right.
and I also think sometimes people stay longer because of their fear of being judged. So I had three nieces and nephews that joined the military, and I was thrilled about it. Right, I had one in the Air Force, one in the Marines, one in the Army. But I made it very clear to all of them that they don't have to stay for a career like I did. No pressure there. I'm glad they joined. I'm proud of them for joining. But if they decide to leave because there's something else in their life they want to pursue, no judgment from Aunt Becky. Okay, General
Right.
Becky, no judgment. But the only thing I told them was, but you must leave on your own accord. In other words, don't be messing up and you be getting kicked out of the service, right? Because then I'll come
Don't
after
you
you
make
to
me
death
look
with
bad.
the hand. Yeah, I'll go, well, I just don't let us down.
That's
So
right. So, Becky, tell me a little bit before we go. Tell us a little bit about your consulting company that you have, Steadfast Leadership.
so I don't do as much consulting as I do speaking. I call it both because I do some consulting.
Yeah.
But I so enjoy the speaking on leadership that I backed off a little bit with consulting. So because of my experience in the military, being in the logistics arena, there's lots of opportunity to consult in the supply chain management side of business.
Right.
But it doesn't bring me as much joy as the leader development and those kind of workshops and writing books on leadership and speaking. So right now I only consult for one company, but my company is really, well, it's still hard to call it a company. I'm just a company of
I'm
one.
just a company.
Yeah, so it's just me. We tease that I'm the CEO, and then my dad does all my finances, so he's the CFO. So we have fun internally within our family. But I like the ability and the flexibility to choose who I'm going to go work for today, right?
Right.
And
Right.
speak with today. So
That's right. And I think it's wonderful too, because we were just talking about some of our adversities, and then how you and I can take our experiences, no matter what they are, and we can share them and we can help. And obviously you're an amazing leader, and you're talking about leadership. And I think if everyone really looked into their lives and saw some of the things that they've been through in their life, their skill set, their talents, their experiences, some of their adversities, and they reached out to others, it'd be amazing how we could just heal one another
absolutely.
from that aspect. If you've been divorced and you've suffered divorce and you've come out on the other end, talk about it. Talk about how other people
Yeah,
can go through divorce. Maybe teach us some of the mistakes that you made that you wish you hadn't. So the history doesn't repeat itself with other women making those mistakes. That's
absolutely.
just
Yeah.
one example. So
Well,
tell
I think
everybody.
that's the reason why. That's why it's so good to talk about our failures, right?
Right.
I am divorced. So I do consider it a failure. because, obviously one of us didn't choose the right person. I mean, I was perfect. I don't know what the problem was. But, no,
That's what I say about mine.
Right. But I think it's like, first of all, I think it keeps us real. It keeps us humble. And then people go, oh, well, because that's why people say, well, what should I call you? Should I call you General Becky? And I'm like, call me Becky. I came into the world Becky. I'm leaving the world Becky. And I think the more we can stay real and humble, the more people can relate to us and go, right. It's not like you wake up one day and you're, an author of 3 books and general or whatever. I mean, this is a accumulation of many of experiences that have gotten us where we are today. But we can help people along that, along that journey. And we should start really young. I love going to schools like 6th grade and above and talking about leadership. And I use a lot of the same stories. I just pick different parts of the stories out than what I would use if I had a room full of CEOs.
Right.
But if we could help with the younger people, then we could save them some dread on the outside, further down the road. I know we're audio, but I was going to show you. I don't know if you can see this picture or not, but I spoke with these girls. It's called Girl Power. And I don't know if they still exist or not. And one of my friends asked me during the summer, would I come speak at this camp? It's called Girl Power. And I said, well, okay, well, tell me more about it. And what am I going to talk to all these young girls about? Well, I went through my house and I love hats. I found all my different hats, biking hat, a cowgirl hat, my parade hat from West Point, a baseball hat, my beret. And I put them in a big old box. And I went in and I said, who likes to ride horses? And a little girl raised her hand for my cowgirl hat, right? Who likes to ride a bike? And what I was trying to tell them is that in life, we're going to wear a lot of different hats. Mom, wife, daughter, sister, CEO, general, what? And and I wore all those hats, but your life changes. And how can we share that with other people? It's really fun.
Oh, I think that is such a cool way to share with the youth, because I know I love speaking at some of the colleges that I spoke to. I love speaking to the sorority girls because they have such a positive mindset, and I love sharing with them and helping them with direction, because they're just going through that chapter and their next chapter is so much bigger after college, right? So I love that. And I think that we can all find a way where we can share and we can help others grow, especially those of, in high school, college, or even the younger girls. I think it's
totally agree.
I think it's wonderful. So tell everybody where we can find you, Becky, so we can follow you, we can get your book.
My website is beckyhalstead.com with one L. So beckyhalstead.com.
Okay.
There's a link to my book. There's videos. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook twice. I think I'm on as Rebecca Halstead, and then also STEADFAST Leadership. But if you go to my website, it has the LinkedIn, it has the Facebook. I don't do Twitter. Sorry. I mean, I think I have an account, but I don't do it. I do Facebook quite a bit. And I'm a photographer, so I do love posting photography of photographs and stuff. But it's part of my hobbies, I guess. So that's the best way to find me. And if somebody wants to write to me, which I love, there's a contact Becky on the website, and those typically come directly to my email box. I tell people, if you don't hear back from me, it might have gone into junk mail. Fire me another one, because I do try to respond to all those, because I like to hear other people's stories. I mean, this is when I was showing you the pictures of the kids. Everybody has a story, and if we would share more of our stories, I think we would be a lot healthier as a community.
Thank you so much, Becky. I appreciate you sharing today. An honor. I have met a general.
Well, maybe someday you can hug a general. So
that's right. I want to hug a general. I'm going to come to Washington. I've met the general. I'm going to hug the general, and it's on my bucket list. It's going to happen. Okay. I can't wait. I can't wait to share this with my husband today, because I've just got to tell him, like, I know a general. So therefore I am a higher ranking in my household.
Use it to your benefit. Use it.
That's
girl.
right.
So,
I'm going to use it to my benefit.
Thank you for what you're doing, because
Thank you.
You're making a difference. And this is what you asked what I share on stage. I just want to throw one more thing in there.
Yeah.
A lot of us are focused on being successful, right? I mean, when we
Right.
started out, when we were young, what do we want to do? We want to be successful in whatever career path we took. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's the drive, that's the determination. But
Right.
grit is what gets you after your purpose. And once you find purpose in your life, then it's not about being successful anymore. It's about being significant, right? And so I really hope that your listeners go, you know what? Being successful is great, but I need to take it up a notch. How will people look at me in my life? Was I significant? And was I helping others? Because a lot of successful people do nothing for anybody else. If
Right.
you're successful and you do things for others and make a difference, then then you're being significant. And I hope more people do that. And I think more people will that listen to your podcast, because you're amazing.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so, so much. I really do appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Guys, today, if it added value to your life, take a screenshot and post on social media. Tag me at Real Girl Talk Podcast on IG. I would love that so much. And thank you to all my faithful listeners. If you can go back and leave a rating and review today, that would be amazing. I like to shout them out on future episodes because I truly am honored by each one of them. It's time for me to share my dose of encouragement, ladies. Step out of your comfort zone. Try something new, reboot, regroup, and reinvent yourself if you feel stuck. You can go to my website, realgirltalkpodcast.com, add your email to the list so you don't miss updates, giveaways, and announcements. And until next week, stay healthy, make yourself happy, and above all, keep your faith in God. I will be praying for you. God bless.